Mark, how have you and the family been?
Good. Had a rough couple of years, to be honest. Lost my mum and my brother 3 years ago now. Very close
Sorry, mate.
succession, and people that knew me as a player knew my mum travelled width and breadth every game, home and away with my wife and kids. So tough couple of years, but locally like now with myself, wife, two kids, brilliant.
Right, mate. And we go right back to the start. And where was home for a young Mark and who lived at home with you, mate?
Uh, Home for me was Wigan, uh,
Yeah.
little part of Wigan called Welly. It was about a mile and a half, 2 mile from the old Central Park Stadium. Lived with my mum, my dad, older brother, David that I lost, and then younger brother, Owen.
Right, so it's the house always been competitive, mate? Was it you three first up, best dressed type thing? And
Well, Owen was a little bit out of it. He's 10 years younger than me, but me and David,
right,
we followed suit. We both played rugby league. We both sport mad. He was more football as he got older, and opportunities for me come at 14 for rugby league at a high level. But ultra competitive, didn't mind if we played darts at home, dominoes, cards. There was always a side bet of, like a forfeit for or something. So very competitive. And to be fair, our household's exactly the same now.
yeah, you just passed it down, mate. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how was you introduced to rugby, mate? And where was your first club?
Very strange, actually. Where I live now, we still live in Wigan, but we live in Standish Law Ground, and I played for Standish, a local amateur team, Standish. Uh, and they trained at Christopher Park, which is Wigan Athletics' now training facility. Uh, and I think I started about 11. My cousin got involved and invited us down. And very strange introduction. Didn't really know what I was going into. It was just turn up and have a bit of fun. Love getting dirty, playing it cold. But looking back, I'm pretty adamant that we had one of the first female coaches ever in the entire country. I don't know if she was the first. A lady called Carol Fisher. Uh, and to have an introduction from a female, uh, someone we looked up to, and that even back then, I thought was a special introduction into the game.
Yeah. So when you rocked up, Marks, obviously people will know you as a pivot player, mate. You dabbled a bit at 13 as the game was changing, but like we predominantly know you as a hooker, don't we? A number nine, mate. So how was you with the ball early on? Was that just a natural thing?
It, no, I'm a big believer that if you work hard, you get your rewards. But I've always been brought up that practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect, and nothing else will do. You'll always make mistakes, but if you don't understand your mistakes, you can't progress to the next bit. So again, going back to my older brother, we used to play a game. We used to live on a hill with a massive slant. And we used to play a game called knock-ons, and basically one plays up the hill down, and it was kick the ball to each other. Whoever knocked on lost. But believe me or not, every night for about 4 years from when I started playing, we used to do 100 passes up the hill, left and right. And I'm absolutely convinced that I've become a nine because I learned to pass up a hill, as stupid
Off
as it
both hands as well.
sounds. So even though I'm passing to a target, it was always rising. So to actually pass off the floor was something that I believe I was taught without realising I was being taught from a very young age.
No, I don't like that, mate. So like you said, you were at Batley a minute there. So, so was you still at junior school then, mate, or is this early high school when rugby began?
It's probably uh, just on turn of going to high school, and then that's where I think for any sport it starts becoming a bit more serious. So for me, it got real serious at 14. So at this stage, I'd been for trials at town team in Lancashire, didn't really get in. Then I left the Standish team and went to a local team called St Jude's. Again, very lucky to have two ex-professionals coaching us, as in Ronnie Dootson and Tommy Gibson. And we also had Bernard Long in the club, Sean's dad, that was
Yeah,
an
yeah.
unbelievable coach at that in that stage of his career. So I was blessed with the people I was around, but it very quickly became a thing where it become obsessive on the basis of, I think at 14, you start going into English schools territory. And I remember choosing my exams at school and I'm getting my parents in and saying, listen, now you're going to do this. Because I can't do the training and the playing amount that I was doing and do the schoolwork. So we agreed that I didn't have playtimes. I did all my homework at dinner times, break times, on the basis of I need to leave school twice a week early to commit to all this training and playing. I think it worked out 1 week. I'd done something like 12, 13 in between games and training sessions within the week.
And that's a huge sacrifice at that age, Mark, isn't it? Like, that's your little bits of freedom through the day that you're willing to put aside.
It was mad. There was even little stuff with my older brother. As long as I could prove that I've done the work, he could write it up for me on computers, even back then. So the school were very good, but it was a very John Fisher just up the road. It was a very supporting school. But like I said, I don't think as a child of 14, 15, you actually realise how much you're actually doing. Yeah. And then signed 14 professionally at Wigan. I believe they'd been coming down 2 years before, scouting players out. I think there was a local St Helens lad, Darryl Lacey, was the youngest ever player to sign at like 11, 12. And then scouts had come watching a lot of that. But the trouble is with me then, I weren't really bothered about being flamboyant. I used to love whacking people, not being the biggest bloke. I just have an obsession really with the challenge of, you should run over me. And in your head, you should do, but in my head, you won't. And the biggest kick come later on in my career with coaches challenging me on things. And I only realised, even from a young age, I was challenging myself, but it come to fruition later on at Wigan and Widnes, challenging the big boys in the world, if you want to say.
Yeah. So do you think you probably, again, without realising, mate, already had them standards sky high because you're sacrificing the little freedom moments through the day and stuff?
It's hard. I think, like I say, it's very difficult to explain, because I think even when you're in clubs and you watch young children come in and stuff and that way, and I watch Super League and Championship still regularly, and I can't get my head around people that get to a level that can't pass the ball or can't run a line. Not because they don't know, it's just very strange for me. They're fundamentals that should have from young. But you get people. I can give you an example. There was Anthony Mullally, Widnes lad. I remember him coming into the first team, and he had absolutely ripped up the academy scene. And we'd been watching him, and that way on. Give him the ball, mate. He was an absolute machine. An absolute machine. I think he'd done Thai kickboxing or something as well. He was a machine. He come to the first team. The first thing I noticed, so I'm sure it was Steve McCormack at the time. I pulled him up and said, "This guy jumps every time he catches the ball." And he goes, "I don't get what you mean." And it was like, we went to the drawing board and they agreed that all we had to do to make him a little bit better was stop him jumping when he was catching ball. And it was just the little thing of, he took the ball under his arm. And to me, that had gone out the game 5 years ago. But
to carry you meaning,
yeah. And I think when you're going on about fundamentals and stuff, it's very personal. But the thing is with Anthony, I don't think he'd ever been challenged. So he just
say that because he was always big for his age in that one.
He just got the ball and run hard and made yards and did what he was told. So I had no doubt that he was going to be a first teamer. Not a doubt in my mind. But if he could have ironed a few things out, it might be a difference between being a first teamer and an international.
Yeah.
But that's just my philosophy on things. I do it now with the children with football and stuff. I just analyse things a little bit different. But I think to be successful in anything, you need it in early, just to give you the chance to learn and progress. And I just think I was very lucky that I had a brother that was like teaching me and helping me without actually realising we was doing it. And then when you go to secondary school and you're doing, and you got to thank your mum and dad and the school for giving you the time and the belief. And then it's a matter of, how do I repair these? And the only way of doing it's by going out there and putting a performance in. And I think, like I said, at 14, I think if you want to get something, you've got to start grasping it then and really bite your lip and say, if I want to do it, it's now.
Yeah. When did that come into your game, Matt? You know, like spotting them intricacies, because like obviously people hadn't spotted that with Muladdi.
No, I could probably go back to being like 15, 16 with England,
You
and
seen it early, yeah.
very early. And what it was is because we were again, I think it was just time and the rugby league evolving and progressing and stuff. And Kev Sinfield was in the squad. I think Leon Price was in the squad. There was a lot of very, very, very good players. I might be wrong with Leon, but Kev Sinfield was captain, and he broke all the records on the thing. But when you watched him, how he pushed himself and how he spoke and stuff, he was a captain from the day he picked up a rugby ball, and obviously what he's done now has been phenomenal as well.
Yeah.
But I just think it's been putting yourself around the right people. But we were very. I can't think of the guy that did the town team. Cliff Peters, local guy. Mike Peters, his son played for Wigan. We used to get statistics at 14 and 13 from games: left hand pass, right hand tackle, shoulder, stuff like that. And I just think it was either you got it as a piece of paper and put it down, or you looked into it. So being a nine, this little lad in between all these big fellas, I think it was a challenge every week. And I had to, being a smaller lad, there was only two ways I'd gain respect, and that's by talking to you and trying to help you, or beating you with contact. Because as soon as I'd like to think, I remember one of my first team games, Paul Anderson stood in front of me at Central Park playing Bradford. I think we beat him 17-0. And Anderson stood in front of him and he's going, I've got this little squirt in front of me. Give me the ball. Give me the ball. And they bypassed him. And Terry Connor was alongside of me and he shouts to him, they bypassed you because he's whacked you 3 times. After the game, he come to me. And you don't realise it, but you've made a barrier straight away and it's instant respect. Both ways, by the way. Both ways. It's not me saying that. And I think it's the challenge of how you take it personally. But it was installed from a very young age that if you want to get somewhere, you've got to really one knuckle down, take all the advice you can get and talk. So when I'm watching things, I'm going, should he not be there? And I was already questioning. And I think, like I said, and then going into Wigan, I think just opens a million different doors then.
Yeah. So because people that don't know, which they probably do at this point, mate, if you're a rugby league fan, but viewers and listeners, St John Fisher is a conveyor belt for Wigan, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was usually the Pats lads that went there, wasn't it?
Yes.
So
my cousin's 2 years below me.
yeah.
I think they went through all the schools. I mean, primary school, secondary school.
Yeah.
Sean O'Loughlin, Sean Briscoe, Ford, Damien Sane, Andrew Crabtree. Absolutely phenomenal team. And I think 14 of them signed for Wigan or something daft. So when they come into the academy setup, they dominated as well. But I think I might be wrong. I think about 7 of them made full-time professional Super League players. Something daft like that. Crazy, mate.
Do you think the fact that you were playing for the Dudes though allowed you to express yourself differently? Because if they have stayed in the same system from let's say 7 or 8, mate, I know you started a little bit later, but say they've been in that system 7 from 8 and played that same way all the way through, adjusting little bits like because the game changed, like you said. Do you think they were maybe Lockers is a phenomenon anyway, isn't he? He could play 6, 13, do you know what I mean? But do you think they were maybe in a mould that they might have found hard to break, where you were able to dip in and out with school rugby with the Dudes?
I think the way I describe it, I just think they become more professional quickly because they knew how to play the game. Again, I remember going to a Central Park game and I think that it was school against school and it was obviously all the St Pat's lads, John Fisher lads, whatever it was. And they won 1-0. And it was like, you've never seen a rugby game go tit for tat like it was. But with everyone talking about how good this squad was, the other teams were still performing. So I think they had Chev Walker in the side, obviously a Leeds lad, and others as well. But we used to go and watch these at amateurs, and later on in my amateur career, we used to get 1,000 people watching some games because the standard was so high.
So good.
And I think the difference, but for me personally, between them at St Jude's, we had a very good side as well. We played in Northern Conference, I think it was, and we played. Would it be? I'm trying to think of the Archer team. They had James Jones Buchanan and players like that playing as well.
Like Queens.
They were very good. They were very, very good. So we were still playing at a level because we just didn't have a nucleus of. I think out of my out the Jude's team, we had Carl Long signed at Widnes. I think I signed at Wigan, and then I think there was 11 or 12 signed for Warrington. I think near enough 13, 14 of us signed professional contracts. But it was a lot more common back then. It's not like it is now, with the transitions and stuff. And I believe even when I signed at Wigan, I believe Widnes were coming around the same night because they'd been to Longers and we used to live near each other. But it never materialised, mate. So it's strange times. But like I say, I just think it depends how you look at both teams. I think they were professional before us, as I say. I think the expression side of it, I wouldn't even say at 14, 15, I knew technically, like how to express myself. And even in my early days of going into 16, 17, to me, it was still a DOS with my mates. Serious DOS with my mates, and like an
It's good though, that bit. Yeah, I like that it still was that.
It weren't serious. It was just, you turn up, because I've been at Wigan every Monday for 2 years anyway, but I'm still playing with all my grassroots mates. I just had 2 or 3 different teams that I used to go to, and you have different mates, different backgrounds, different cultures. And to me, that's what it was all about, learning and taking in as much as you can. And then, like I said, at 16, I remember going into to Wigan. I can't even think who was the coach when I went in, but John Morney had come in. And I remember him like having a chat with us one week, and when you listen to him, it just becomes very serious instantly. And then you realise that there's a bit of money for it behind, there's a career behind it. Honestly, mate, crazy world.
And the standards, mate, because of the teams you were in, I can't imagine they deviated too much, did they? So like your school rugby was probably as good as club rugby, but both were not quite scholarship. Was it scholarship then, Matt? Weren't quite scholarship standard, but they'd have all been right up there.
I think every grassroots you went around, this is probably the difference between mine and my cousin's team. There was no real teams. There was 3 or 4 players, and then when you brought them together, it just moulded into like the team we had at England at 16. I'd have to dig it out proper. It was phenomenal. But then, like you said, because of the way it was, you'd not played together a lot. You're playing against France, and you beat them. France were just evolving into a nation playing the sport. But then our Andrews year, 2 years below, their first team fought beat the Australians in a double test match. And I think that's where it's a bit different, that they progress and go up. And but good standard, like I said. I don't think you realise what you're doing or really take much into it, because it's a bit more personal. Because I think at that age, I think you take more out of it if you win or lose. Whereas what's jumped into kids now, it's not about winning and losing, it's about development. And I think that's where the sport's changed a little bit, in the sports science side. But like I said, mate, you go watching grassroots now, mate, the phenomenal athletes. That's the way I call them now. They're athletes. Unbelievable kids.
No, they are. What were you like in a new environment, mate? Did you embrace that? Was you a bit timid?
Quiet. Like very quiet. When I went into Wigan, I'd ask questions, but I wouldn't organise or speak or step the mark. The way I'd like to think I was remembered is because I trained hard, played hard. And then I think the talking and the being confident a little bit in room comes with progression of being around good people that have been there, done it, and advise you the routes to take and stuff.
Yeah. And at least you had it in you to ask questions, Mark, didn't you? So I wouldn't have, to be honest with you. I've only got like I have now in the last couple of years doing this, but I think back and think I should have picked brains like all the time.
Again, right place, right time. I remember Wigan were coming watching grassroots at 15,
Yeah.
16 that I already signed. And one of the coaches moved me to 7 from 9. And he did it for about 6 weeks. And then after one of training sessions, I just said to him, you know, discussion, put your hand up, threw my hand up. Yeah, Matt, I goes, when am I going to play back 9? And he's like, what do you mean? I goes, I'm not a 7. I don't like 7. I just want to learn my trade as such and that way on. And after a lot of the kids, you know, mums and dads, the parents pulled me and was like, hey, Matt, well done, because everyone's been wondering, why did you say it? And I went, I don't know. I just wanted to know why, but I did it without realising at the right time. And when you just have like a little bit of a trait maybe that's a positive and you don't realise. Because even now I say things me and I'll go, shouldn't have said that, and I'll apologise later on, but at least I've said my piece.
Yeah.
And I just think it's just something that I had in me. It was just a little bit torn back as a kid, where now I'm still not confident speaking. This isn't so bad, but we used to go into schools. You get 10 kids in front of me, I'd freeze. Get me in front of 1,000 fans. Don't bother me at all, because I'm speaking about something I know.
Well, and you're passionate about, that's
Yeah,
the thing, isn't it? I
yeah.
get that, mate. Yeah, I'm probably the same. But so when you were playing 7, then, mate, in that period, did you see the game differently? Did you pick up any new traits?
For me, I always, and it's not like this, and it's a bit disrespectful to 6 and 7s, if I'm honest, because I think they're the brains trust of what goes on in the team. But when I was playing there, I found it was like playing 9. You got the ball on, you know, your hands on ball when you wanted, but defensively, I didn't find it challenging enough. I used to love to make tackles and tackles, and I think I had a record at Wigan Schools with 64 tackles in a game at 15, 14. And that's what I prided myself on. So when he put me to 7, it weren't the fact that I was playing a different position. I just wanted to be at middle making these tackles and like I said, challenging myself without realising I was doing it, of trying to whack these bigger guys. Because not only that, at 13, 14, when puberty hits in, you grow a little bit, the gaps become a little bit smaller, you fill out a bit. And then I'm starting to win a lot, where maybe at 12, 13, I was run over a little bit, because everyone does it. And it's part of the learning process, isn't it? You can't learn if you're winning all the time. And I think that's what let some seriously good kids down when they make the transition to things. They've not been challenged in different ways growing up. So you're probably better off being a little bit behind the curve. So to actually play 7 was a big eye opener of, hey, I can still do this here. Don't need to get whack with ball. But I think I used to run in with ball, if I remember properly. And he was like, no, man, we need you to play. And I'm like, he was just different.
Throwing dummy drop-offs everywhere.
but it was still an education into the thing. Don't get me wrong, I didn't take it as a joke. I put the time and effort in. I learned it, and I think that, again, come to fruition once I'd left Wigan later on and come to Widnes. I think I played every position bar wing and prop at some point at my time at Widnes in games.
Oh, and it, as like you said, like just off this chat we're having now, you're just an educator, aren't you? You just want to, you're sponging everything in. It's awareness, it's spatial, it's other people's movements. Because like I remember you used to jump out at 9 before really people jumped, weren't you?
Yeah.
And like that brought a whole new like
Well,
perspective to rugby league, didn't it?
I can go into it, but when I transitioned into Wigan Academy, like, I replaced Martin Hall in my first game. Legend, England international, everything, achieved everything. And then I played in the Academy Grand Final at Central Park against Halifax, which we won. And I've got like 500 quid in my back pocket, and I'm thinking, whoa, this is all right. So you do 12 months in the academy, and then I was thrown into first team. That's the only way I can think. I was only about I bet you I was just over 12 stone.
Yeah.
And as the season went on, John Mooney had been got rid of. I think Andy Goodway took over. And what was very interesting at that stage, even though the coaches were coaching, as stupid as this sounds, I probably got more coaching from Andy Farrell as an individual than I did the coaches. So he'd tell me when to kick in a game. And nines weren't generally kicking back then a lot. It weren't a thing that was introduced probably till even after I'd left Wigan 6-7 years later. And my job in them early days was not to run with the ball. I just had to make every play the ball and kick when Andy told me, and just try and make the tackles and get your body in way. And I just thought, like, as a kid going in, there was no pressure, just to think. And I said, I'm not to up myself to say there's only once in my entire life I've ever thought, please don't run at me. And it was last game, Central Park, and Freddie Tuolangi stood in front of me, and I thought, please go the other way. Please go the other way. And it was the only time in my career. But when I walked off, it took me about 2 hours. I'd lost about half a stone, 2 hours to recoup everything and that way on. And one of the guys come to me and he says, Mark, you did really well there. And I told him. And he says, make yourself a promise today, Mark. And I go, and this was just a guy that helped out, maybe help the kitman out. And he said, make yourself a promise today. You'll never think like that again because you don't need to. And it was like, when you look back, it was like probably the best bit of advice or best bit of confidence booster someone could have give you. And then through life, meeting all these big lads and stuff, it just resulted in, Mark, they should beat, but if they don't, you're winning. And the trouble is, as soon as you win, you've got their respect for the rest of their lives. And that's what I based my entire career on, I think, without realising I was doing it.
No, and isn't it mad how like a little snippet from someone like that can leave such an impression on you?
Mate,
And he probably didn't think twice about that, Mark, did he?
no. And he wanted on, and it was just something that I picked up on. People have probably said, and you don't pick up on it. I remember little things like Andy Farrell saying to me, listen, he used to call me lad all the time, and it used to get on my nerves. But I think he did it because he knew it got on my nerves. And he said, listen, lad, he said, all I want you to do today is lead line forward. So, in my opinion now, he's given, even at that young age, it's not until I left, but he was giving me responsibility. And by myself, I reckon at stages, I was the only one that wasn't a full international in the squad.
Yeah.
And he's giving me responsibility, so he trusts me. Rad's is saying, Mark, blah, 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 come do this, that. He trusts me. So I must be doing something right. But it was just, I think it come through challenges and respect, like I say, and turning up at training and people challenging you, and you're doing things and you don't realise what you're actually doing. But looking back, I think they were moulding me to become the player I was later down the line, and that might be where the captaincy come at witness. And Steve put trust in me, and obviously following Tez up and stuff, and that way on it just snowballs and progresses there.
I like it, mate. So let's talk about the transition then, mate, from scholarship to academy to first team and key moments that you can meet. So I imagine an academy grand final is a real taster for what you want to do, repping the first team. And another thing is, mate, is what's it like seeing your name on the back of your jersey when that's where you're from and it's your first time and stuff?
I've been watching Wigan for years and years and years. So to sign for them was I could give you a funny story about that. So at 14, they're touting around, and we got invited to Central Park, and we're in chairman's box, and they're going like, Mark, do you want to sign? And we'll give you, like, I don't know, just say 10,000, whatever it was, over the next couple of years, and we'll keep you on type thing. And he goes, we'll give you some time with your mum and dad, right? So he walked out of the room, chairman, and he goes, my dad goes to me, Mark, 10 grand's a lot of money. It's like 19, what would it been, 95, 94, 95. And he's going, 10 grand's a lot of money. I goes, I don't want it. It's not enough. He gave me the biggest good hand and you've seen. And honestly, I was like ready for turning it down on the basis of not without being ignorant, but having no respect for money and not being surrounded by money in my life. I didn't realise what it was, and that way on, and I was ready for turning it down, and my dad made me sign it. But the transition going in, mate, Wigan made it very smooth. As I said, from 14, trained every Monday for 2 years. Every Monday. But every other Monday in the 2 years I was leading up, I was training with North West Counties for go for a 6-week tour. So finished my exams at school, and I go on this 6-week tour to LA, Fiji, New Zealand, Australia. And it's a young lad from Wigan that's mum and dad have never had nothing, never been out of country. One of the hardest things I've ever done, but one of the best things I ever did as well. Went over there, got offered a contract over there from Parramatta with Chris Thorman, that obviously went and had a career at Huddersfield as well. And I come back, and literally we come back, and that I was thrown into it. And I think that the reason that Wigan threw me in was because of the 2 years of the Mondays and trusting and learning, and realised that not necessarily player wise I was ready, but my work ethic was ready. And for the sake of playing 20 minutes in 2 games, but from an early age, I think that's why, again, there was no fear, because it was just normal. Just turn up and play. Just turn up and play. And then the transition then into the academy. I think I played them 2 games and we had 6 weeks off. And it was like, how good's this, being paid for 6 weeks off? But I got a scholarship with the college, and it meant training in the academy and playing. And mate, I'm not bothered what anybody says in any walk of life. They are your best moments that you'll ever have in a sports journey. The ribbing and jibbing and the laughs and obviously emotional moments as well when people go through stuff, and you don't realise how together you are, but how quick time goes as well. Because the year after, I'm out of that environment and I'm in first team. I'm playing first team games Friday, Saturdays. I'm midday after sweeping stands, cleaning boots, taking kids on stadium tours, doing educations, media days. But I loved it. And even 6, 8 years down the line, when we were doing it at Widnes, I still loved going in the schools and doing the anti-bullying campaigns. And it was this that I think makes you a respectable person as you go along and respect what you've got. And I think in sport, for me, if any of my kids could do it, I'd ask them to do it. But I think it's gone out the sports to some extent. Even grassroots teams now have kit men and people that clean boots and stuff. It's a crazy world.
Oh, it is, mate. And it's them little behaviours without you knowing back then, which you spoke of now, that probably got you that opportunity over, maybe, no offence, like bigger, higher profile academy players, because they'd have been watching your attitude to getting asked to do shit jobs.
Yeah.
They'd have been watching how you walked in the building. They'd have been watching how you approach training, what you do after training, wouldn't they? Without you knowing.
But again, right place, right time. I was one of 2 lads. I think there was another lad from Halifax. But the year above, we had the Farrell twins, Chris and Phil Farrell. We had Dwayne West, Graham Tabiner, Martin Gambles, and all these players were established academy players, but they weren't Wallies as well. And even though one might jib a little bit at training, the other one would challenge you. So again, I just think I was blessed to be in right place, right time.
So what's the first team dressing room like then, mate, when you know you're making your debut, and do your mum and dad get to be there and stuff?
Well, I got told on the week leading up that I was training with them. Yeah. And it was like, right, Mark, we think blah, 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 blah. I can't even remember. John Mooney said, we'll bench you. You might only play 5 minutes, but you're on bench. So obviously everyone's ringing for tickets and stuff and that way on, but you're literally on your own. So it goes into change rooms. And at this point, you're just taking everything in. And again, I wouldn't say I was nervous, but just like people watching your idols get ready for a game, and watching some get really angry, really aggressive, psyching themselves up, and others sat there, and others doing a bit of gym work, and very strange, and sat there. And then I remember walking out and thinking, no, it's all right. This played on here for you, but because you played and done it, it felt like home. And he put me on after about 15 minutes. And that was it. I played
Just
50,
that 5 minutes.
55, 65 minutes, whatever it was. And honestly, mate, I can't remember anything as enjoyable. I was this thick, thin human running around with these gigantic blokes. I think we played Hull. Chico Jackson was still playing, I think, at the time. I played against him a couple of years later in reserves and he smashed me up. He battered me in the scrum. Uh, but he was it was like a privilege. But again, I don't think I realised what I'd done till farther down the line, because on the back of that, I remember Dave Swanton and Jason Robertson organising an interview, which got next to back page in one of the papers, and it was massive, massive news, and I didn't realise this. And being a fan of Jason, I didn't realise how much he personally looked after me in the first 2 years when I was there. He used to give me old boots, speak to me about his journey, how he turned his life around and stuff. And then on the side of that, you've got Andy Farrell giving you advice, Cridfeld Linsky, and honestly, mate, couldn't have been in a better environment for a 16-year-old lad.
Yeah, what a team to watch as well, mate. I remember I had the red jersey. You had the red and blue was the
Yeah,
away one. You know, the night was it the
yeah,
Norway one where Robinson scored under the sticks in the grand
yeah,
final.
yeah.
Mate, that's like some system to be part of that,
So,
especially for a homegrown lad. You were living the dream without realising you're living the dream, weren't you?
so the first mention I ever get at Wigan when I was there, we was watching the grand final night. Do you know when they used to get the coaches on the night before doing the preview? And they were on about Robin McCormack and John Clark being the reserve nine. And John Morney turns round on the night, if you watch the interview, and says, and we've got a lad in reserves, Mark Smith, he'll not be so far off. And that was the first time people, I think, really opened their eyes to the name, because I've done the playing and that way on. But for me as a kid watching it on telly, I was like, he just said my fucking name. He just said my name. And
Class, innit?
that was the biggest, probably, excitement I got from anything, to realise that, come on here, you've got an opportunity here. And John Clark was a phenomenal kid, and we had a lad called Ian Talbot in front of him that went on and played at Saints and stuff. So I was surrounded by good people. But don't forget, back then the academy and the alliance was open age, and the academy was 21, I think, or 20. So it was a bit different than it is now. You went into the academy and you're playing against Chico Jackson that's 34, and I remember Brian Carney coming in at Wigan and Stephen Allgate, and these playing in reserves, and you're thinking, how good you were playing with people all the time. Where now,
I never the air league, mate. Yeah,
if you're coming through now, you're coming through playing, and you go from playing against lads you've played against or a year above for 2 years, playing against grown men. It's a big ask for them. It's a big
yeah,
ask.
it is. Yeah, it's essentially what you done, though, Mark. Really, just at three different levels, wasn't it?
Yeah,
So maybe it might have been a little bit smoother, but you just went from playing, no offense, against kids to men,
yeah.
and probably on them toes you did, because the Aussies always seem bigger than our schoolboy
Oh,
teams, don't
they
they?
just kicked us in, mate, when we was away. They didn't play
Yeah.
football. They just battered us. They beat
But
us with
but
rugby
again,
as
that's
well.
an introduction, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. But do you know something? I think, again, I go over to Wigan a lot. They've got a past players thing. So to be fair, I fell out at Love game after I'd left Swinton, but I'll tell you about that later. And I didn't go over for about 10 years. And then once Matty Peake found out that I lost my mum and my brother, he invited us over. And he invited Elliot and wife and all that to changing rooms and stuff to see how it is and give him a special introduction. And what Wigan do is phenomenal. But when we're over there, we're always with past players. So then the players from all different clubs and cultures again. And it's unbelievable how many people say, do you reckon we do well in modern day? Do you reckon we do well in modern day? And I always turn around and say, I think for me personally, I played at the best time rugby league was at its bump. That's my personal opinion. I thought the era before us, the 5 meter was brutally tough. I thought the transition was good, and I think now they're just complete athletes, but they've lost that little bit of rough edge in it and rightly so because of the head injuries and stuff. And I
Well,
fully
that, but
understand.
it's the stuff people look back on, though, that mark,
Yeah,
innit?
and to me, I just think if I was playing now, I think as an attacking nine later on in my career at Widnes, maybe it would suit me better. But the contact wise, I believe all the contacts change how they stand and hold and dance and put them down,
Hustle and stuff.
rather
Yeah,
than just going whack. So
yeah.
I think that's why people can't have an opinion on different eras. You've got to say that these kids are the massive kids now, the big athletes, and they're fit as fiddles. But I still watch, and I always say to myself, this is where I allude to going back. Was the skill level though? Is the skill level as good as what it was? You don't see the flick passes that Jamie Lyon used to, or Gildart and stuff. That the Aussies still have it. They've taken the whack out of their game. They've still got it.
This is something I probably should ask later on, but while it's in my head, mate, I'll throw it at you. Coaching never been brought forward to you?
Again, in little bits, yeah. Tackle coach, pass coach, that type of thing. But I remember being at Widnes. Steve McCormack wasn't only a coach, but he was a top friend and a family friend, and still is to this day. And I remember us playing at Widnes one year. We'd won the Northern Rail. We got beaten in a grand final, and we'd just done pre-season. We was playing Swinton in a pre-season. I think we beat them at home 26-24 or 24-22. And they sacked it morning after because the game wasn't good enough. And I remember going meeting up with him and saying, like, what? Like, and he goes, trouble is, Mark, he goes, he's been lucky that he was at Salford before that and got what have you. He said, but it's the hardest thing in the world with how cutthroat it is. It's probably worse than playing because we're playing, you've got contracts, so we can take you out, but you're still playing and training and stuff. We're coaching, with it being a win-based game, if you want to say that. Steve had all these credentials and they sacked him on a friendly, and it just put me off. Because I would have liked, in fact, once I packed in, I did a petals course preparing to teach, kids at school and that way on. But again, it just become too political for me personally. And so I didn't even go into that. But they were my two loves, trying to help young kids develop into their thing or going into schools doing anti-bullying and that way on. But I just think with the way the world is, it's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be very lucky to get to the heights that you do, that the ex-players do. And I think, not putting myself down, but I don't think I hit the heights of some of these players that are coaching now. I didn't really make the grades that they did. I didn't think it was for me in a way. So it was.
Better players don't make better coaches, don't Mark, did he?
No, which I understand, but it was just that experience with Steve. It just stuck with me that what happens if you're in today and gone tomorrow? How do you pay? Because let's be fair, rugby is not the highest paid sport in the world. And I said I remember my first contract at Wigan. I think I was on 90 quid a week for the year, and you got win, lose, draw money. And it's not so bad as a kid, as a 16-year-old coming out of school, but I don't think I ever earned enough to retire or play off. And that's why I think I packed in as early as I did later on the basis of got a wife and two kids in the house, but it's never going to pay it off. I'm now working within the NHS. And I said, and if I break my arm or do something, and these lads are doing this week in, week out at three different levels.
I think that's definitely a player if you're in rugby league, mate. Whether it's like, remember the Vikings and the community stuff that you
Yeah,
basically were a part of when you were there,
yeah.
weren't you, going into schools, and or even like, don't have to be a head academy coach, but there's
No.
definitely a space there for you with someone.
Well, I used, obviously my best mate at Widnes was Tim Holmes, Sherlock.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I remember with Tim and that way on. But I think once I'd left Widnes and the way it happened, I just think, like I said, I started losing interest in a way, because I even watch now when I go, I try and take football people to rugby to try and introduce them to it, and they love it. But I just critique. I just call people, not intentionally, and it's not
Because
he's
it's what
bad,
you see in Mark, innit?
it's not
Yeah.
he's bad, he's bad, he's bad. But I just think there's just certain levels and like self-respect you should have before you get to something. And I just think sometimes it's not lost. You know what I mean? I just think it's a different game now. Like I said, to me, they're athletes, and these top players, like I don't know, Harry Smith, if you want to say, Morgan Smithies, that's gone over to Australia. You look at them; they're unbelievable players, but they're coming into the first team raw for me. And it's like when we were coming in, you were ready to play. Well, now I think they're thrust in and they're given a bit of time. Look at December. If Willie Iceland got injured, would December have kicked on? Yeah. But would he have got the opportunities that he had? Probably not. And it's right place, right time, mate.
No, I agree, mate. I agree. But like I said, there's definitely a place for you somewhere, I think, mate.
Boot
Just
man.
you,
I'll go
just your
back to it,
vision.
boot man.
Yeah, but just your vision for the game and like the little things you see. Like you can't teach that, Matt. That don't come out of a book. That only comes from doing it and being in them environments to understand why potentially he might not be taking the information in, or he might be getting his feet a little bit wrong here when
Yeah.
it's closer to contact. And it's just a little like viewers and listeners might not get it if they've not played at your level.
Yeah.
Like I've not played at your level, but I understand it. Like it's
The
just the
hardest thing,
little things.
the hardest thing for me, wife says it a lot. Even when I take the kids doing footwork, if their feet are slightly out, I pull them up on it, and she always goes like, "Why are you being so tough?" And the thing is, once you've got it forever.
Yeah.
If you keep doing it wrong, for me, you've got, I don't know. If you're not taught something the right way, like I said, it was just drummed into me. I can't even remember where it come from. That practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. In fact, it was Terry O'Connor. We was messing around in we had like a basketball court in Wigan in a gym, and we used to have climbing ropes that you used to have to go up single-handedly and stuff. And you're thinking at 14, 15, you'll never get up these, but then you grow and you learn. But Terry O'Connor used to challenge me all the time to passing competitions, and believe it or not, he used to beat me a lot, like more than I beat him. And it was the philosophy of it's all right throwing, but if I'm not hitting, I'm not winning. And so I've got to win, to win and that way on. But in a game, and this is what I found with probably the more elite players, if you want to say, without being disrespectful to anyone. Adrian Lamb, he used to draw when I was on the field at training, he'd draw a box and he'd go, "Mark, anywhere there, it's fine, anything like that box, it's my fault." So if I threw him a ball and he'd knock on, if it was technically in the area, but the only challenge I had to know if he was running or not. So I used,
Yeah.
after so long, Adrian Lamb's arguably one of the best sevens I played with. And it was very, very simple. And this is what I was saying about knowing your role, your responsibilities, knowing where to be. He'd stand wide off the ruck. He was always going to step back in or come inside. And he'd have an inside ball, short ball, long ball. And if you watch his entire career, that was him on a tee. And he used to tell us, just put it in my box and I'll do the rest. And I just had to find out if it was 1 week. And again, you go into a meeting and I made a break. Say I went 60 meters, and we scored off the
At
next
least
play.
you thought.
uh, we scored off the next play,
Yeah.
and he turned around to me and I got to go up at meeting and coach is up and he goes, "Boom, what do you think about this?" And I'm thinking, "Fucking you get in there." And he went, "Completely wrong decision." So Adrian Lamb goes, I agree. And he fucking slated me, mate, for about 10 minutes on this decision. And it was a Challenge Cup game, say, and we'd won with 30 or 40, so it didn't matter. Yeah, it did. And what had happened is there was a marker down, and because I took off, he says, "Watch this, though, mate. If you take off, you get tackled and we score next play." He said, "It's a 4v1 over here." He says, "We're guaranteed to score. In a big game, you don't get that second chance." And that was the introduction for me is just because it looks right or you've done something good doesn't mean it is good. You might score 3-4 tries and get man a match in paper, but it doesn't mean you've had a good game. You might not miss a tackle, but you do a lot wrong by Paul Cullen at Widnes had one where if I pass to John Duffy and Duffy passes to Myler or whatever and he knocks on, it could be the pressure of the guy inside that's made him knock on and stuff like that. And that's where it becomes weird in a way but interesting as well. But I was introduced to that very, very, very young, and people giving me a responsibility again of as long as you do your job, you're fine. All you have to do is find me and get behind that ball.
Yeah. And it's like you said, you learn whether they fade off the pass, fade in on the pass, whether they run an unders
Yeah,
or overs. And that's when you then know whether to jump or off the deck or whether you can pick it up and pass. It all comes with striking that relationship, mate,
yeah,
doesn't it?
yeah, yeah.
So going through the gears at Wigan, mate, what were the highlights in your senior career at Wigan before you moved on to Widnes and come to us?
Three big highlights, I think. Well, there was maybe four. Last game, Central Park, we beat St Helens just because it was an iconic game. Played the full 80. Just the, I think that was the first time I probably got like a final atmosphere without being in a final, if that makes sense. But it was special games, red hot day, and obviously we won. 2002 Challenge Cup final win again, St Helens. The only downside to that, as awful as it sounds, was it was at Murrayfield and not at Wembley. So I never got the opportunity to play at Wembley. However, still, to me, back then the Challenge Cup meant more than the league.
It was massive. Well, it's like the FA Cup, wasn't
Huge,
it? Yeah.
and it was always mentioned at the clubs I was at. Every club I went to, the Challenge Cup, and then probably the highlight, but a loss was Bradford beat us in, I think, in 2003, 2004, grand final at Old Trafford. But to say I'd played in 3 events that were pinnacle in the sport for a team like the last game, Central Park, Wigan were world champions, Super League final winners. And then 2002, we hadn't won a trophy for a long time. Wigan, I don't think, since 97, 98, whatever it was. And then, like I said, the losing grand final, just to play in all 3 was, obviously, it's pinnacle of anybody's rugby league career. But also, Old Trafford, mate, one of the eeriest places I've ever walked out. I know why they call it the Theatre of Dreams. You walk out and it's one of 2 stadiums in my entire career where hairs on the back of my neck have stood up. And I remember walking out on field and thinking, shit, it's full.
Real. Yeah.
Look behind sticks, and I found my brother in stands that weren't going, and it just instantly calmed me. And then the other one that got me tingly going, I know I'm jumping a bit here, was the Northern Rail final when we beat Barra.
Yeah.
And there was about 5,000 on there at Blackpool, 6,000, whatever it was. But my God, mate, what a place to play. What a place. So, but them 3 are the Wigan ones.
Yeah. And what was Wigan ready for the new stadium, Mark? Were people happy with that move?
No, there was a lot of trouble between fans boycotting stuff and that way on there. So I think the drainage had gone and they'd sold it anyway, and Dave Whelan had bought it, or Tesco had bought it, whatever it was. But at 16, as awful as this sounds, I weren't really that bothered. Even though I was a fan and the history didn't really resonate as such, and I was just a kid playing for a team that I loved. But then, obviously, a week after last game, Central Park, we go over and we lose the first game to Castleford at the DW. And even though it was a playoff game, it felt weird, quiet, not like it had previously been. But looking back, mate, it was the best move I think Wigan ever did. I know it was a long time to recoup and reshuffle, and I think fans would agree now that you can't really go back to how it was. And obviously, sweeping stands and stuff, you realised how much TLC it needed.
So were the tough times the Adidas kit worthy, mate?
I think I can't remember. Like Night Kick was the last year, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah, so that's when it was. Do you reckon that's the the end of the successful spell, and then the Adidas come a little
Yes.
bit of the drought.
Yeah. When I say it was hard, the thing is, I still think when you look at the squad, I always smile when I do. I played with some unbelievable international players. And I think a lot of the players that were playing back then coming over for a payday, people used to say, or prolong the career, you don't get them players coming over anymore because of the salary cap issues.
So what would it have been like Brett Dallas and Haynes,
Well,
Cohen, people like that?
If Steve Renouf,
Yeah, Craig Smith.
Dave Furner,
Yeah,
even after me, Carmont.
yeah. Well, they've been shrewd, haven't they, Wigan? Like, they tend to
Unbelievable.
do good business.
Unbelievable. But these were Aussie internationals coming over. Without being disrespectful, now they're coming over because they can't get in squads, or they're young and they want to make a name for themselves, which is brilliant. And you look at Jarfield and Bevan French, how the hell they can't get in over there is beyond me. When they come over, but sometimes you have to move sideways to go forward as well, don't you? Some of our lads have gone over there. I remember even back when I were playing, Ian Sibbett, Keith Mason, Marley, obviously the big one. But then two going over, they play a handful of games and come back. I think one signs at St Helens, one signs at Warrington, and making big careers off making a bold move because it wasn't normal back then. But when I look at the teams that I played with at Wigan, even though we didn't really have much success, mate, unbelievable. Unbelievable. And then that...
Sorry, mate, go on.
I was going to say, and that transitioned exactly into Widnes when I come to them. The first 2 years at Widnes, phenomenal again.
Yeah. I'll touch on Widnes in a minute. Just because you've mentioned the Oz, mate, we've sort of gone past it, but what come with the Parramatta offer? Nothing?
No, because I'd already signed at 14.
Yeah.
When you went out there, they just inquire. So I'm trying to think of his name as a Widnes. Phil Finney. Phil got offered as well. And Phil is probably... I can't think, there was a ginger lad in our squad as well. His name's got me. He's another Widnes lad. John Poynton. Is it Poynton? He's a Widnes lad. But Phil signed at Warrington, but he only signed a little bit later, I think. So obviously he could speak a little bit more. But he's probably the only person I'd say from my amateur days that I was surprised that didn't go on and have a unbelievable international career. He was some player.
To be honest, I heard him and Kev were outstanding, weren't they, at that age group?
When you break it down, I don't think it was him. I think it was opportunities. And again, this is me probably speaking out of turn, but when they signed at Warrington, John Duffy had become youngest ever player to play first team. He was in the squad. They had Willie Swan. They had players like Langer had just been around. And I just think he was around too many other similar positions at the time. I might be wrong. He'd be able to explain more, but what a player he was, man. What a player he was.
I believe so. When I've had a few on around your age, they say like him and Kev were the two standout players in the country.
There was
what was he, a loose forward, was he?
Kev?
Phil?
No, 7,
Phil.
wasn't he?
Was he?
7, because he after my last year at Widnes, or the year I left Widnes, I think he come in working within the community or on the board or something. But he's still the exact same person he was, and I just think he was another one that just took it thing, just relaxed and calm. But gutted for seeing him not make a career out of it, because when you know someone's good, and like I said, it might be opportunity, it might be injury, it might be personal, you don't know, but unbelievable talent.
So signing for Widnes, mate, what was the thing with that? Did you get approached by anyone else, mate? Were we lucky to get you?
Wigan had offered me a 12-month deal, which I took. And then Dennis Betts had got me in the office and said that they signed Wayne Godwin on a 2-year deal. So obviously being a friend, a player, ex-player, and now the coach, he was honest and said like he doesn't think Morris would want me within the 12 months. He'd pick who we thought was playing the best out the three, with Terry Newton being the other guy. And obviously Tez would top us both every day at week. And I remember walking out after Dennis and thinking, shit, I've only ever known Wigan. I don't have a job. I don't have this. I don't have that. What goes on? So I knew Frank Endicott had been the Wigan coach. I knew he got the job at Widnes. I rang him up and legally he couldn't speak to me because of the conflict of interest. He put me in contact with an agent, and within a matter of I don't know. I think I'd signed for Widnes.
Right, mate. And what was the contrast like? So when you walk into Norton Park compared to Central Park / DW
Yeah.
or the JJB, it was then. Sorry, wasn't it? But
To me, the DW was special because it was pretty revolutionary. We had a 60-meter running track under one side at stadium with targets and crash pads and stuff. You had the full gym under it. We used to train at Christopher Park, Coral, like real phenomenal things. But to be fair, I'd also been Central Park where it was in need of care and attention. It was just like walking around breeze block areas and stuff. So that side of it didn't bother me. But I remember I'd had the shoulder reconstruction. I drove over to Widnes, met Daniel Frame and Shane Millard, and instantly part at squad. And that was the impressive thing. And I think it was 6 weeks till I started training or something. But it was an absolute unbelievable time because it was a challenging time, as in I didn't know anyone. Well, I did. I know Big Millsy from the Australian tour. He come on tour with us, Millsy. But Millsy then was like he played a bit and that way on, but he needed toughening up in a way. He was a big lad that could cause damage, but just needed that little bit of grit in him. And what a place for learner! I remember walking across them around the stadium under to the little gym under the stand, and they were all in there pumping iron, mate. And it was that year at Widnes was arguably the best year I had in rugby league, and we lost. I reckon we lost 70% of games, come third from bottom, we ended up going down. It was arguably the best year I'd ever had in rugby league.
why is that, mate? Did it just bring back that love again?
It was the people, the fans, the stadium, everything. But also, I had a comfort blanket as well, as in Gary Conley, Mick Cass, and Terry Coroner had all come as well. So I weren't going in on my own. And one thing I used, even though I was talking a little bit more at this stage in training and stuff, and that way on, I used to let my training do the talking, so much so that I remember the physio saying to me, Mark, you're gonna have to like boom, boom, boom. And I come back and ripped it up, I believe. And I was pretty strong for my size. I could just about more than double my body weight on bench, which puts you into this like superhuman category. It's not. It's just a technique and a lifestyle and thing. But then Daniel Frame, he could do 3 1-minute rows on a rowing machine, and every one would be over 300 meters. And then we used to do a test where you do 3 1-minute rows and you've got to get over 1,000 meters. Could I do it? Not a chance. I bought a rowing machine to try, and that's where it come into me. So when I come to Widnes, it was a different set of challenges because I knew my boundaries at Wigan. I weren't going to catch Andy Farrell being 100 kilos benching 200, but I knew the lads that I needed to be with. At Widnes, it was coming in and going, oh, Dean Bird's here, he's good. O'Neill's here. He's been at St. Helens. You know what I mean? And it was trying to find the right people. But because I had the nucleus of the Wigan guys in as well, the transition was so easy. Who was our 6? Owen Craigie.
Yeah.
Is it? Unbelievable. They one of the rawest, best talents I'd ever seen. Just a big guy that only turned it on ever so often. But what a player! And that year, honestly, it from 1 to 22, everyone. It was honestly the best time I'd ever. And I think I played some of my best rugby in my first couple of years at Widnes. And after I'd left Wigan, I remember us getting plays in over the years at Widnes, like on 10 weeks, like trials type thing, or whatever you call them. And they're all coming to me and saying, Matt, what advice can you give me? Liam Farrell being one of them, Joel Tompkins being another. And I said, don't stay at Wigan too long. I think I did 12 months too long, mate, with how much fun I'd had. Both of them go on for having huge careers at Wigan and international. But I'd still said the same advice to anyone because it is. I think you can get stuck in environments and hang around too long. And looking back, I didn't know what was happening at Wigan, so I couldn't have left 12 months early. I just wish I had done it 12 months early to get the enjoyment back in it, rather than being in. Because I played 123 at Wigan, and I reckon 70 of them could be 15, 25 minutes. I
Yeah,
don't
no, we
know.
get that.
And,
Yeah,
and to be fair, that's 5 years of your career gone. Where if I'm playing 80 minutes every week, I'm doing what I want to do. And it's no
yeah,
disrespect. Terry Newton was international, one of the hardest lads I've ever met. And an absolute gent off the field as well. Really looked after me, learned a lot from him. But I was never going to waste him while he was there, because when you've got this natural fear of someone, to me, I'd have him in my team every week, even if he had to play fullback. He'd be in my team every
yeah.
week. So I just, but honestly, like, as I say, I'll go back. It best time in my life, them first 2 years,
Yeah.
playing wise.
Just touching on Wigan a minute there. I think Matty Pete epitomises what Wigan is now, doesn't he? Like, I think Matty Pete would be an hard character to walk away from.
I think that's what he's got. He's got the blend at present. And like I said, I can touch on this, that when we go over, it's not the past players that they look after. It's the kids, the families, everyone's invited. And honestly, it's an unbelievable place to be. But I think a lot of clubs are doing similar now as well. I know Wigan have got one this Friday where they've invited all ex-Wigan athletic players and Wigan rugby players to the game. Thursday night, I think that. And they done 151s going. And I said, these are people that might have been in the academy and played 5 games. But to me, that's what it's about. It doesn't matter if you played first team or something. You've still been part of someone or something's development within that club.
Yeah.
But honestly, mate, I think as a coach that I play for. But again, you've got Sean O'Loughlin, Tommy Lulawai, you've got Willie Isa.
He's there, isn't he? Yeah.
But Willie Isa's just left and gone to Chelsea, I believe.
Chelsea.
But
Yeah.
what people don't realise is Willie was doing mentoring at Man City for 12 months with the younger kids. And he'd invited Elliot into the meeting to go and see what it was about. And I was like, no, that's your business, mate. And when you've got them players around to go and they're trusting him, it's very easy for everyone else to trust in him. I just think what he's got there is a special, unique blend of everything.
So when we just went down, mate,
Yeah.
was there ever a chance or an opportunity that you were going to leave, or were you happy to stick around?
I sat down with Mrs. straight away. Terry Connor and Mick Cassidy, I think, said they were going again. Or Terry was retiring. I don't know if Gary and Mick went again. Anyway, I was invited to board meetings. It was brilliant. I was like this little kid in a sweet shop listening to them, but I never did any talking because they'd been around it. And again, very much looked after. And I remember being in the meeting and they're going, we want this and we want that and we want this. And he said, right, we'll do that. And Terry just at the end of it said, hey, give Mark a car. And they were like, well, Mick's going to be travelling as well. And he goes, yeah, but Mick's all right. He's 33 or whatever. He said, just give Mark a car. And they were like, Mark, what do you think? And I rang Amanda and I signed it there and then. As I say, it was never about money for me. It was about enjoyment. And
Not the Primera from Ball Street or Nissan Garage or something.
do you know what it was? An automatic Citroen Saxo, a little silver bullet.
Was
it
it?
was crap. No, it was. Do you know something?
Joking aside, that mate, sorry.
I eight for night type thing. But honestly, it weren't that. It was the fact that they did it, and you felt wanted. Terry did go around again because Barry Mack come into later on in the year.
Yeah, he did.
And we were chatting and that way on. And after I was going like, "What are you lot doing?" And they were going, "Yes, I had offers every year, but it just weren't me. I was never going to leave Widnes until I was kicked or not wanted, and ultimately that's what happened."
Right. So was you ever out of contract, really, mate?
No.
It's just the move just materialised.
I signed a 1-year deal when I come, for the first year. But we'd already spoke about having a 3-year deal before the season was out. So I knew that if the worst of the worst was going to happen, I was there anyway.
Right.
And like I said, people always say, oh, yeah, but you did this and you did that. And I said, this sounds awful, but I didn't want to go and be around bottom of the league because I think when I spoke to a lot of lads, it's hard to keep your emotions level-headed and stuff and that way on. And it sounds a bit big-headed, that. But I just fell in love with the place.
Yeah.
Just fell in, and not only that, I said, obviously Amanda had come, we were, you know what I mean, she come to all the games and stuff, and it was little things behind the scenes that people don't see as well that means a lot more than rugby. Which
And you started your family, mate, at Witness as well, didn't you?
Yeah, well, we had Carl, that's what I'm saying. He's 18 now, doing football coaching, but he used to come. I remember when I left, they give him a Widnes Vikings teddy. He literally still had it till 2 years ago, and it ripped, and he still had it for all that time, 16 years. And
Great, isn't it?
it was stuff that like we went through tough times. We went through not. So when Carl was born, he had a cleft lip, and they asked us, did we want to go private to help him, and we was told no, NHS is best. But little tiny things that they did, mate, and it was you didn't get that at Wigan. It felt more family orientated, and the way I can say it is, I was at Wigan 7 years, including the academies and signing, and you play 123 games, and you got rid of on the spot, and no one says thanks, kiss me ass, or anything. Bar the odd 1-2 player. There was like gutted you've gone. Yeah, and Aussie comes over, plays 30 games. They give him £20,000 and a massive send off. And to me, it was just like, I've put my heart and soul into this. I'm a local lad. You brag it all around within everything you say about how you are. And you're actually treating me a bit like shit, if you're being honest. And then you go to Widnes and they're asking, how's your family? Can we do anything? Can we do this? And you feel like wanted. And to me, as I said, that's more than the sport. I love the sport, and I still do, but I love the training and the hard work. So this little bit outside was just the cherry on top of everything.
Yeah. So standout moments at Witness then, mate, and why you left, but towards the
Didn't
end. Give
leave.
us your
I
good
didn't leave.
moments first. Yeah.
Standout moments got to be. People will probably turn around and say the Northern Rail final. It was, but I think there was certain games that probably stand out as better games, because I think that Northern Rail was supposed to be a real close, tough encounter. I remember going in for scrum, and Jim Gannon absolutely pasted the guy in front of us. I can't remember the lad's name. Pasted him, and he was like a real hard character, this guy. And we knew Jim was hard, and that just set the tone for the game. And I think, or was it? Did we play Whitehaven? No, it was Barrow, wasn't it? I think.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, whichever one of them
Yeah.
two it was.
Yeah.
He absolutely paced him. And I remember, like, I think Duffy come off bench at half time and was arguably man at match. He was phenomenal. Tuakua Love stepping through, and the atmosphere was brilliant. And that obviously is again, pinnacle of championship rugby. But 2 grand finals, or just to get to them and experience them in that way. And I kept saying to people, it's a matter of now or never. You don't play many finals. People go through their entire careers and don't play them. So you've got to embrace it and do it. So even though you lost and you've not got what you wanted, it's still unbelievable achievement. Still, one we lost at Leeds to Castleford. I remember going on coach after the game and thinking, Cass were very good.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately over the two, I can't remember, they had a bald-headed Australian in back row.
Newton Beale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gutton Beale and Danny Brough just turned
Rough
up
kicked
together.
us to death, didn't he?
And
Yeah,
that day they just turned up together. But I remember going on coach, and club went into administration. And I remember sitting with Blanchard having a pint up back at Buzz and him going, I'm gone. And he'd literally walked off the field and decided he was going. And it was like, obviously a disappointment to lose him. But when you look back, it's still a huge, huge, huge game. But it's what happened after that for me that people probably won't realise. I think with Steve coming in and what he did for the club, that was probably the best time for me at Widnes, even though it was tough with the administration and people going, why did you not leave and stuff. Told you, it weren't about the money. It weren't about ever leaving. It was about my family being looked after and me turning up and enjoying what I do. And the challenge is I was gutted that Dennis Moran and Blanchy and all these left. But the rebuild was special for it to be around. And I think I was gutted not to get to be released, if you want to say that, the year I did, because I think we were about 12, 18 months away from really turning the screw.
That was some team that played in that final as well, wasn't it, Mark?
Honestly, mate, I think we'd beat Cass a couple of weeks before. We've been tit for tat over there. We beat them early on. They battered us. We battered them, and then it was grand final. But they had some quality in those as well, and it was a two-horse race. It was a two-horse race, but very similar to when Lee come down and Salford. They were two-horse races every year. I said, but you can name the players that we had in our squad that day, and I think, again, all Irish, Welsh, English internationals, Grix, Blanche, Dean Gaskell, Tua Kowaloff. Yeah. It was unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. It just, who did we have? Jordan James in front row with Oliver Wilkes. Yeah. And it just, Bob Beswick at loose. We just didn't get it right on there. And I thought, to be fair, they did deserve it. When you look back, they were better than us on the day, and it's just how sport works. But as I say, what an experience. I'm pretty privileged that I've played at Championship 1, Championship 2 and won trophies at them all. But I said to people all the time, like, you get the medals out now and show the kids. And it's like they don't understand the effort and blood and sweat. I remember us losing the Northern Rail against Batley. I think Jermaine McGilvray scored the last try in corner late on. And I remember going in changing rooms after, and I think there was 11 medals left on the floor. And I took mine, and people were saying, like, this is talking between the team, like, and they're going, I don't want to be. I said, you will in 20 years' time, because it's an experience. And yeah, we've not won it. Yeah, we've done something wrong. You might have not gone well, but you've still got to be happy with what you put out there every week. You don't go out to make mistakes and miss tackles and do stuff. But if you get beat by a better team sometimes, and we were clear favourites that day, I believe, because I remember Paul Cullen had been on special leave and come back. It was an emotional time for everyone. And we get beaten the last couple of minutes, and Batley were good on the day. Yeah. But crazy sport.
No, that's it. Yeah. But you know, the week building up to them occasions, mate, like the big games, they're not just normal weeks, are they? How do you keep a lid on it for people that haven't been there like you have before?
Very different. So I'll go back to Wigan. When we won Challenge Cup in 2002, we did 10 training sessions without dropping a ball. Right. Very, very surreal place. Very, very surreal thing. But I think a lot of it comes to coaches and how they involve themselves and stuff. So Challenge Cup final, we'd not dropped these 10 balls. I've been told I'm on bench, and it's like biggest game of my life this now. And you're thinking, we were allowed in Jacuzzi and pool for 30 minutes. And Gary Conley kept the team in for about 3.5 hours playing ball, right? Stayed up at night, and they're all having pizza and talking and on about gambling and stuff and that way on. And it was so relaxed. Get up morning at game, and Andy Farrell's at front and he's doing his speech, and you pick things up that you remember, you know, just in case you might need it again. And he went, Smith, come up and have a chat. And I went, fuck off. He said, come up and speak. And I'm like, whatever I am at that age, the 20th something. And he goes, tell these lot what it means to you, Mark. And I goes, it means everything. And I goes, not for me, but for you lot. I'm a Wiganer. I know what it means to me. And he come to me later on and he said, Mark, what you said was pretty good. He said, because it tugged, because you're saying you know what this history means to you and for other teams and stuff and that way on. So I try to use that when we come to Widnes. Sorry, just go back to Wigan though. But when we train with Frank before big games, day before a game, you train for 12 minutes. You blow a whistle halfway through a move and that, and you're off. And people are like, and it was all mind games. And like with Widnes, I think before one of the finals, they ended up throwing extra training sessions in. I don't think it went well. But it was
Probably the one we
more,
lost then, Mark, innit?
yeah. And
Yeah,
people go, things happen for reasons and stuff, and that way on. And it's not the reason we lost, but it gives you
yeah,
an excuse to find a reason, if that makes sense.
yeah,
Because without being rude, you come into a final in any stretch of the imagination, you probably need to do less on the basis of one, you don't overthink, two, you don't want to put too much pressure on, but three, you do. It's natural to everyone. You go on a field and you start doing these, but not only that, you get tired quick. And it's how you control your emotions. And especially us at Widnes, we had players on loan. We had different genres of players up and down. We had Bob that could play 9, I played 9. We'd swap at 13 every so often. And because of stuff like that, there was a few interactions. But as I said, very unique, very, very, very different. For me personally, no different day at office for me. But I had a strange ritual when I used to go out. I used to always sing "Let's go for a little walk," just in my head. And people are going like, "What you want?" And my first question would be, if I'm lining up next to you, is, "I bet I knocked this cunt out before you." And people would go, and I'd mean it, and I'd tell the guy Mick Nanning or whoever, I said, "Put it on him." And that was my introduction into a game. And if I didn't get the first tackle, I'd try and make myself get in front of the second. And if I had to leave my position for to do it, I would.
you will
And
just setting the tone, Mark,
just
innit?
it just relaxes you.
Yeah,
But with the ball, then, and you can ask lads at training, we used to run throughs in the morning. I'd always kick on third tackle first time, second tackle, and they go, "Matt, what are you doing?" I goes, "This is our game tomorrow." And if it was or it weren't, to me, you're just playing mind games. But this is all stuff I learned from other people. It weren't
yeah,
me;
coming
it was
through. Yeah,
experiences. But it's also difficult as well, mate, because we used to have this thing, Gavin Dodd, if you remember Gavin.
yeah,
Uh, we used to have this thing. If you call Doddy a wally in no uncertain terms, he'd take it on chin and go, still be Doddy. But if you call me that, you might not get the same reaction. So it was
yeah,
trying to get the balance of how you talk to certain individuals at certain times. Mick Nanning was a good one. Come on, Mick. We need you today. And Mick was come a day, go a day. And he's what,
yeah,
third in all-time points still,
yeah,
or whatever he is. And in certain games, Mick would just like win a game on his own. Lee Durant could win a game on his own.
yeah,
But you always know what you get from Lee. Where sometimes Mick, unless you give him the ball, sometimes he wouldn't come for it because it weren't his job. He was doing his job. So you had to
yeah,
know that and just use him for what he
yeah.
is, which was a
Even just go
phenomenal
down the
athlete.
short side or something for an early carry and that. Yeah,
Well, how many
getting
tries did he
involved.
score down that short side? He was an
Yeah,
absolute animal, mate. And very underrated, by the way, as well. Very underrated for me. I'm gutted he never really got a crack at Super League. But again, I don't know if he did get opportunities and didn't fancy it because of work commitments and stuff.
yeah,
Because once you're in that division, it is hard to transition back.
yeah. No, and that's what I've found doing this, mate. That sometimes it just doesn't benefit a player. There's plenty of Super League talent in the champ. It just doesn't make
Unbelievable.
sense.
And what
Uh,
the players go through, mate, that work and play, I can't do anything but admire anybody. I tried it for 3 years at Swinton, travelling down motorway 2, 3 nights a week, and then away at weekends. And it's the hardest thing in the world. And the games aren't any easier. They're probably a tad slower, maybe it's, things a bit down,
attritional though, innit? Uh,
but it's tough.
yeah,
Tough.
that's it. Where was Swinton playing? Were he at Haywood Road by the time you got there, or was
Do
it?
you know something? I can't. We played a lot at Lee Sports Village.
Did
and
you?
then we played. So we played at 2, 3 different. But again, this is just me being me. I just turn up, and at this
Yeah,
stage, because of what had gone on at Widnes and that way, and I think I fell out of love a little bit with the game. But I'd made people promises that I did, and I delivered on my promises. We got them up. Not me personally, but again, we had a good team.
yeah. Right. So if you leave Witness, mate, are you happy to discuss the circumstance
Yep.
or
I
tell us
don't
why
think
Swinton?
I don't think anyone really got an answer when I was there at
Right.
Widnes. I never wanted to leave. Uh, I played the final and Paul Cullen had said that he thought me and Kurt Netherton would be ideal for Super League at, the next year that we go up. And then I fractured my eye in my jaw in a tackle on Brendan Worth. And I remember coming off and they signed Kurt Netherton. Obviously, this was previous to that. And they said they will take you to Super League. Months down the line, speaking with Terry O'Connor, Stu Wilkinson and people, they were saying basically I weren't wanted. So what a lot of people don't know is I offered to take a 70% pay cut if I could call a testimonial of any sort, 3-month one, 12 months to game or whatever they call it. And just never materialised that they wouldn't tell me I wasn't wanted till 3-4 weeks before end of season. I'd already resigned to that I was going, but it was more principle of sticking my foot in ground and saying, well, it's not me that wants leave. You tell people that I'm not wanted. That's fine. It's part of the game. I'll move on. So how the Swinton move come about is Stu Wilkinson eventually was the only one that had the balls in Midcast to say that I weren't wanted. And I think it'd be better off if you want to carry on, move elsewhere. And I got wind that Steve McCormack was taking the Swinton job. And I thought, he's arguably one of the best coaches I've had in my career. So why not go and play for him for 12 months and see how it goes?
He's a top bloke as well, isn't he?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I can't even think of the guy's name now that owned Swinton at the time. It's gone out of my head. John. He did the Sky. What did he do on Sky? He did all the stats on Sky for him. And his son does it now. Anyway, I met him at Bolton Stadium one night. And he said, Mark, what do you want? And I said, I'm not really bothered. I said, Gavin Dodds told me to ask for like quadruple what he'd said. And he said to me, honestly, what do you want, Mark? And I said, I'm not really that bothered. How about just giving me some tax-free money? And I'll come and try and do a job for you type thing. And he went, yep, that's fine. So I knew straight away, being where I'd been and in the conversations in the past, that not that I'd undersold myself, but I knew I was cheap, if that makes sense. Yeah. But to me, it weren't about the money. It was about going. And obviously, I played with Ian Watson at Widnes. He was going there. Martin Ainsker at Widnes. He was going to Swinton. Darna Wilson, one of the nicest, perhaps hardest sports you'll ever meet, that obviously passed away. And it was just another good squad mate. And again, the reason I liked it, looking on paper, I knew half of them anyway. Mike Morrison. So the players I was going playing with, I knew were hard lads. And when I mean hard working and mentally strong, which makes obviously the transition a lot easier. And I turned up and we win the league. I think, was it year after Steve Mantle left? And then, like I said, I'd lost love out again then and decided wrapping.
Yeah, and you had to win the league because of that promise to them 5 people in the beers, I think.
Yeah, very, very early on. Very early on, Steve has invited us to a fans forum type thing, or greet the fans. Went to a pub in Swinton, and there was about 4 or 5 blokes in this pub, and it was like, "What do you want to do?" type thing. What you going to promise? And I said, "We'll promise we'll win league." Oh wait, yeah. Steve said it was the worst thing I'd ever said, but. Looking at the paper, mate, and we had a lot of ex-Lee lads in there as well. And when you're in the Championship, you know a good player when you see one and what's right and wrong. And obviously there was, I think Keithley were very good at that year as well. But I think the league, we pretty much wrapped up with about 3-4 games ago. We did very well, but not being big-headed, but I anticipated it and expected it. But that might just be my type of goal, though.
And that's because you know the game, Matt. There's nothing wrong with knowing how the game's played. Like you said, it slightly alters it. Maybe you go down a level, but rugby's still rugby, isn't it? You still get them characters that would have ripped your head off as a kid that are now a bit older and are willing to do it now, but in a more dark art way.
It was funny though, because like I said, everyone's coming from work and stuff and that way on, and it is difficult because you know what it's like a normal week. You don't sometimes want to get up and go to work, or you've had a long day and you come in and to do 6 hours. Some of these, like Mike Morrison and these, were doing 6-8 hours on building sites and then coming training and putting a shift in at weekend. and I'm guessing some of them would have been on 3,000-4,000 a year plus match monies. And when you look at the effort that they put in because they love the game, you can't do nothing but admire people like that, mate.
So what would have stand out at Swinton, mate?
Playing for Steve, I think that's the ultimate standout I can say. Obviously, the club itself is phenomenal. It was run very well by John Kidd. John Kidd and Paul Kidd were the two. Right. So John run it, and his son helped, and they did Sky stuff, and it was run very well. And it like I said, we had a few privileges. We had a lad called Neil Holland down there that was best mates with a footballer called Naden Monower that was playing at Man City. So we used to come watching. But we were playing at Salford, at Lee Sports Village and stuff. And it was just a pleasure to have no real, I know I said we'd win the league, but no real pressure on your shoulders and just play the sport that you love again. Because like I said, once I'd been fired off from Wigan to Widnes, it was that quick. I had no real time to let it delve in. I just got on with it. But the Widnes one dragged on and it really put me down. And I still think, even though I did the few years at Widnes, I probably retired very, very young. Do I miss it? I miss being around the boys massively. Do I miss the pre-seasons? Not a chance. I don't think anyone misses them. But honestly, mate, it's a privileged career to have. And friends for life. It's funny when you bump into them, everyone stops and speaks, and it is a special community.
It is, mate. So what's life been like since retirement, mate? And when you stopped playing at 29, did you realise it was going to be a complete stop, or did you think I just need a year away? And
no, I said to wife it was done. And again, I remember the bus drive back and having a few beers with Ian Watson. They offered me, do I want to go again? And there was no real money there, so it weren't really worth doing because it without being big-headed, it would have cost me then to travel rather than getting travel money. And I remember coming back and getting off the coach, and I was telling them I'm done, and they're going, "You're not done. You'll go again." And I got in car, and Mick Nanning was pleading with wife, saying, "Tell him go again. Tell him go again." Because I think at this stage, Elliot's 11, so I don't think Elliot really saw me play ever. Where Carl did. Carl watched me technically entire career with Amanda, and they honestly, mate, width and breadth of the country, they went everywhere. And I just knew I'd had enough. And that day, I went into work on the Monday morning at the hospital. And from that moment, I never got one text, phone call, or anything from anybody involved in rugby league. So I knew that Monday morning that I was done. And what I'd done was because of the way I am as a person, I would never have left Wigan. I was pushed. I thought, Widnes, I was pushed. It's all part of the game, I understand that. But like
there's still ways of doing it, isn't there?
And I just thought, like I alluded to before, I just think sometimes sport just expects certain things from certain people. And I think we expected of our homegrown. And that's what I like about what Wigan's doing now. They're recognising that the past is what the club's about. And the future is there, and that's what it's about. And they're getting stuff, and Widnes are doing it. I know Widnes are doing it, and Leeds, and they're all doing it now. And I just think it's something that needs to happen. But obviously, it's evolving like every other sport as well. I don't begrudge anybody anything. I didn't want anything. I didn't want any thanks. But sometimes it's just nice to say, you know something, you did all right. And the two things I take from my entire career was Terry Newton mentioned me in his autobiography, and Chris Radlinski mentions me in these. And I always said to wife, I'm not bothered what anybody thinks of what I did or how I did and that way on, because it's very opinionated as sport is. Yeah. But I must have done all right if them two were talking about me after they'd finished.
No, definitely, because really, mate, that's the respect that we all seek is from your teammates, isn't it?
It's the ultimate respect, and this is the thing. When I've been to the stadium, a lot of people that are in sport, football, golf, tennis, that we speak to, they always say, why do you not take more, Mark? Why do you not take more? So since I finished, I did one promotion, and that was for Widnes when I did the rally driving against Paul Sculthorpe before one it came. That's the only promotion I did, and I give everything away that I got for it. On the basis of I've lived my life, it should be about other people doing it.
Yeah.
But sometimes they're saying, yeah, but you've worked hard and done it, you should reap the rewards. And I said, no, the rewards were back then, having the memories, having the times, having the stuff. He's got to live his life. You've got to live your life. You've got to do this. And so it's just a different mentality. But I just thought, once I'd finished at Swinton that week, I was like, I did all right, but what did you do it for? Do you get what I mean? Because you didn't get anything. So, well, like you alluded to before with the Aussies, they all get massive paychecks and whatever they wanted and this, and all they go on with stuff. And you've put your heart and soul into it and been honest and driven and that way on. And you don't even get a thank you.
Yeah.
And you get it 12, 16 years after off a guy that's come in, that Matty Pete. And I think that's why he's such a special person for the sport, because I think he's pushing boundaries. And like I said, what he's done for me and my family since, once he found out about my mum and the people behind the scenes and stuff, and that way on as well, is it would have meant more, obviously, back then. But it means everything, mate. And my youngest now has absolutely fell in love with rugby league, and he didn't even believe that I actually played rugby league. So honestly, this is true. I had to take him over when Wigan were giving out these heritage numbers shirts and get a shirt because he didn't believe that I'd played for Wigan. And we're showing videos.
I suppose that's quite nice as well, though, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. It is. But this is what people say when because they're both into football, when we go, people talk a lot about their backgrounds and stuff. And it's only when you tell them that you've played rugby, they'll go, oh, blah, 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 blah. And it's weeks after that they realise that you've achieved a little bit. So I've had people say to me where Elliot goes, like, oh, I was Googling you the other night. I didn't realise you did a lot, didn't you? And he's like, when you look back, I did, but I didn't. It was my job.
Yeah.
I didn't achieve. I achieved stuff because of the team, not because of me. It was the groups of lads that I was with. And I don't know, like I said, Ian Morrison, Lee Duran. When you look at them two, they probably never got the credit they deserved in Championship as players. Both Super League players in their own right. Opportunities. Like I said, they won games on their own, single-handedly. And it's people like that because I won a trophy in Super League, it elevates you a little bit. But why? I'm no different than Tom, Dick and Harry that's not won nothing as well. They're still putting the same effort in and being around. I was just lucky with the teams I was in, I think.
But in the same breath, though, mate, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You must have took the drink as well, mate. Do you know? I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
but just don't underestimate what you. And I know it's easy for me to say now because I'm only meeting you virtually like this, but you played your role, mate. The whole system doesn't work without your cog in place, along with the 25 other blokes.
I'd like to think I left impressions on people and stuff, and that way I know. But if I wanted people to look at me now or look at my kids, I always turn around and say, if you coach my kids after 6 months, you want them in your team. Might not be the best now, but in 6 months you'll understand what he's about. And he's never late, number one. He's always in right gear, two. He works his jacks off, three. And he'll go over the top for help his mate out. And I've said there's been times where we've been watching grassroots and there'll be a fight at other end of field and kids will be going, wife will be going, I go, don't you ever tell him not to go and help his mate. And I said it's little things that were installed into me that you might be that little bit better, but hard work gets you over the line eventually.
It's that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard, isn't it? And
I'm glad you said it, because I couldn't remember.
Well, look at me. No, but you're right, mate, isn't it? And one day, hopefully not, but your lad might need them lads that he's running for.
Well, it's part of sport, and it's like, I think now in modern day when you watch a lot of podcasts and read a lot of interviews now, I think people have always mentioned teams, but they don't understand I think it's a lot more in the open now what people mean when you're in a team. It's not just the 13, 17 that go onto a field. It's your physios, it's your nutritionist, it's your psychologist, it's this, it's that. And I said, it's about having everyone's back. But not only that, being thankful and genuine with it all as well. Respect why you're there. You're getting a wage. People are going to have an opinion. You don't like it, don't play. I remember when I did the thing for Paul Sculthorpe, big tall lad played for Widnes. Back row, I think he was. I think he's got a twin brother or a brother. They look very similar. And it was off with his shoulder. And
Babies.
I don't know. I don't know. And we're doing this interview, and he was doing interviews walking around, and they went, Mark, what advice would you give him? I said, why is he not playing? He said, he's hurt his shoulder. I said, he's hurt his shoulder. I goes, what do you mean he's hurt his shoulder? And they were trying to explain to him, and I goes, no, he's either not fit to play or he can strap it up and go and have a go. You know what I mean? That's how it was for us, but it's not modern day, and that's where I fear sometimes that I am a bit too old school or too hard sometimes, rather than just taking your foot off the gas a bit. Because I think, like I said, sports going into their athletes now, all of them, footballers, golfers, tennis, they're all. And like I said, the rugby lads, look at the Widnes squad this year. They're all big lads, athletic, hard lads. Crazy, mate.
Mate, I've took loads of your time up, so a few daft questions for you
Yeah,
before I let you go. Any pre-match superstitions?
just the singing, let's go for a little walk.
Yeah.
Do you know what else I did, though? There were some lads, I'll name them, Jim Gannon and these, they didn't like having needles before game if you have to have them. So I used to go in. Ian Hardman was probably the worst one. I think Jim was all right, but he didn't really like it. But Ian Hardman used to get a little bit like irate, a bit upset about it. So I used to have to go in and hold his hand. But I used to love going in with Paul Stockton, who was doctor, and watching them all and doing that. But but that would take me head away from the game. Do you get what I mean? So go in, semi-piece. I'll pull you to one side on the basis of I've got your back, you best have mine. Or psychology of Tim Holmes, you've caught everything this week, mate. Because if he dropped a few, the reverse psychology was if you mention it, he'll drop one. So you talk with things. So they were just like, I wouldn't say rituals or such, it's just stuff I love doing. But every time it tunnel, I just think to myself, let's go for a little walk. And I think that was, again, me telling myself that it's war and peace out there for me. It weren't a matter of winning and losing. We either lose fighting or don't bother stepping foot on field.
No, I don't like that, mate. And this next word, the definition, different for everybody, Mark, but the toughest player you played with and against.
Mate, I've played with some tough characters.
Yeah.
I probably said the one that was feared the most was Tes Newton by some stretch, and rightly so. People used to label him a lot of things. He was a hard man. That's the way I describe it. And I think when you actually watch back and look back at his career, none of it was malicious and stuff. It might have been mistimed and stuff. He was just rock solid. But so was Jim Gannon, mate. So was Quentin Pongia. Quentin Pongia is a good one for you because obviously he come witness with us, didn't he, for a bit. And the reason Quentin's good is because Quentin didn't do tick and pass. So if we're ever doing tick and pass, you'd be sat on your ass, right? But honestly, I know he passed into a few years ago, but he was tough, mate. When he hit you, it was like being hit by a brick wall. But if he's playing tick and pass as well, if you didn't put some contact to him, he wouldn't stop. And it was just his way of playing. And mate, honestly, mate, he's like you said, definition's very thing, but I think they're probably the hardest boys for me. The hardest boys. Jim Gannon, mate. Wow, you mess with Jim.
Do you know what? He was a good business, wasn't he? Like,
Unbelievable player.
Signing,
and I'm glad to see his son doing well as well, mate. Because I've got to admit, I see. Obviously, he's a bit more agile than Jim was, but I think Jim was phenomenal. But when you put, do you remember Ryan Tandy?
Yeah.
Right. When you put him alongside an Aaron Summers, mate, and then you're thinking of O'Connor and that way on the front row was pretty decent. Doesn't matter if Bob was there, Millard was there, I was. It don't matter. They were good players, and they were. I think a lot of people feared these guys, and then, like I said, you put Tuna and Ian Morrison in back row, frame it. They were good players, mate. Good
We were
players.
blessed, actually. Do you know when you put it like that? We were blessed, weren't we? As fans.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And then Gravy Ann, and people forget about these people. And I said they were very good. Just because they didn't click with us, within a year or whatever it was, doesn't mean they're bad players. Peachy come over, if you remember, for 8 months.
Yeah, mate. Yeah. Ian wanted to stay, didn't he? As well, he was willing to stay.
Phenomenal, mate. Phenomenal.
Your favourite away ground, mate, and do you prefer the old stadiums or do you like the new stuff?
I mention this a lot to everyone I speak to. I love going to all the old stadiums. Stadiums doesn't matter. It's football, rugby, whatever. I
Yeah,
think you've got to really get into history of stuff and that way on. I think I've been blessed that I've played at a lot of the top stadiums when they were just built, and there's better ones now. But even going to witnessing the transition of the seats and going to Batley and playing on the slope, and it from all the Halifax one on the slant or whatever it is, or is
yeah,
that
yeah. Well, it was the Shea when
the
we were
share?
growing up, weren't it?
The
Yeah,
share playing on all them, you're blessed because that's where the sport started and that's where the greats played, and people
yeah,
forget that. And I think that literally has gone out the game to some extent. I won't say I enjoyed playing at Batley because it was a game of 2 hours, genuinely. Uh, Favourite ground? Leeds. Leeds is special, mate, for me.
it's so popular, didn't they?
It's just a unique atmosphere. I've not been, obviously, since the stands have changed.
Yeah,
But going back to when we go, we like I said, we witnessed we had 20 or 30,000, whatever it was that year. Wigan going up with that, but you go and there's some. I'll give you another one when we played at Halifax on the football ground,
yeah,
and I think he kicked the drop goal over in the semi-final. Craig Hall,
yeah,
and I said that day was special, but that pitch on that day was unbelievable, and I think it's very. I won't say I disliked any of them. I
yeah.
just think Edinley's got that bit of uniqueness
Something.
with it. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it is really popular, mate. Like
yeah.
most fellas say that. So, what would you tell a younger Mark Smith if you could go back?
Uh, I don't know, mate. I'd like to think that you know I lived and breathed every second on the field and at training, and that way on it. Maybe I don't know. Maybe looking back now, probably more education wise, because when I were at Wigan doing the apprenticeship, they paid me more money to technically start the apprenticeship at 3 years. So uh, witness Wigan did a load of like stuff, but never got the full papers for doing it. If you get me, so
The experience, but not the grade sort
yeah,
of thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
So it's just, however, I think again that's where the game has evolved. Speaking to players now, I think they all get some underlying background or help or what have you in what they are. I just think
yeah,
it was the era that I was in, but it's just something like that, or maybe a bit more sensible with what you're doing and when you're doing with money wise. Because I think
yeah,
you don't realise again, there's help there for that now. But when
yeah,
I was growing, it was just you come out to school, like I said, with my dad when he said, and you just get that money. It's like I've never had money in my life. I was brought up the best I could. Uh, Probably stuff like that, mate. Not so much the rugby.
yeah. No, that's fair, mate. And you've had a few beers, mate, and the microphone gets in your hand. What you giving us?
I don't think I've ever sung. No, I'd leave it to one of the other lads and just jump on back of them. Uh, like I'll try and think. Da, 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 da.
I suppose you could just get something that people are just going to jump on, couldn't you? And
Yeah,
trade in with them.
I was trying to think when we were in Australia for 6 weeks. One of the lads played guitar all the time. I'm not singing it, but I don't know what it's called. I can't even remember it. But yeah, just it won't bother me because when you go out and bit different when you go out with a group. There'd always be someone that'd be on before you anyway, so you don't need to get on. There'd
Mate,
always be
I need to
someone
be
on.
pissed me. I hate doing it, but
Oh,
if I've had a
would you
few
have one?
ciders,
Would you have
yeah.
one? Go on.
No, so I've got like a picture of you boys on.
Yeah.
And then I got into a like bit of country man called Luke Combs. Have you heard of him?
Right. No.
Kind of Love We Make it's called. I can sing it in the car and that, mate, not to our full pub and
I,
that.
if I had to choose something, it'd probably be like say something like Oasis or something. Someone that'd get people up. No matter how bad you sing it, people will join in,
Yeah.
and probably
Oh,
something
big up.
along them lines.
So, mate, and if you're willing to, I'd appreciate it. You've been around some big names and big players and good blokes, but at 1 to 13 that you've played with,
Very difficult this because I think I could do two teams from two different types of full-time internationals, if you want to say, and then the championship and championship one. Chris Radlinski, I think, speaks for himself. Legend of the sport, legend of the game, still involved massively and obviously pulling the strings behind a successful team that is now. Uh, one wing, Jason Robinson. I think a legend at both courts. Uh, top bloke. A real massive mentor to me early doors in my career. One centre, I go Steve Renouf. Again, watching the support all your life like you do, and a legend like him comes over, you can't but admire what he did. And I don't think he was the best version of him when he come across, but still, what he did and what he offered, and he was diabetic, and mate, you can't speak highly enough of some of them. But he was special. He was special, just like the others. Gary Conley, I think, an absolute freak of a rugby player. When you look at him, probably doesn't look like one. As tough as nails, intelligent, smart, fast, and he enjoyed himself too. And what I mean by that is, at training, he was fun to be around, and he weren't, you know what I mean. He was an enjoy to train with. Other winger, wow, Brett Dallas. Again, freak of a player. I think you could put Bry Carney in as well. Two very similar for me. Different styles of players, but both. I think they used to average about 22, 23 carries a game. And when you look at
some
that,
going in it.
but they were like props carrying it as younger men. Two solid, fast athletes that could tear teams apart on their own.
Yeah.
And like I said, you'd have any of them in your team, but it'd be hard for that split because of Jason. Or else you'd have them both then. 6 and 7. 6 is a difficult one because I think I had a lot of sixes early doors. And same at Widnes, I think we had a big turnover of sixes.
Yeah.
I put Lamb at 7, Adrian Lamb at 7. Like I said, I played with some phenomenal sevens. Ian Watson, great. John Duffy, another one, great. But I just think Lamb's, what he offered Wigan in the years he was there was just, again, but good mentors as well, rugby wise, and that's the way I look at it. 6 is difficult because, like I said, I played with Jules O'Neill both at Wigan and Widnes. Unbelievable
It's
player.
whether you play. Sorry, it's whether you played Fazda if you've got a 13 that stands out as well
Yeah,
in it.
that's
But
what I didn't know if just put Lockers at 6 because I think Faz, you know what I mean. Lockers can play anywhere as well. So put Lockers at 6 for argument's sake. But again, mate, a complete and utter freak. He's a lot bigger than he seems, broader than he seems on the field. But for me, when you watch Wigan after I'd left, everything Wigan did good. Everything they did, he was involved in the team. I'm not on about he was on the pitch And I think Wigan saw that later on in his career when he was picking his games and stuff. It's not necessarily sometimes what he did; it's how he led the team. And again, an unbelievable bloke on the field and off the field. Not a massive talker, but when he talks, people listen. Even at a young age, you could see all that.
Yeah.
Props. I'm going to go for Neil Cowie as one. The reason
I
for
like
me,
Cowie, growing up. I thought Neil Cowie was a proper aggressor, like an old-fashioned front rower, wasn't he?
he was very unique for me. In the few years I had with him, he never got put on his back. Never got put on his back. But like I said, I put Ryan Tandy in the same mould. I put Jules O'Neill in the same mould.
Like Ralphie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unbelievable, mate. And it's just what they do. But I think Neil had this thing of looking after me, a protection thing as well. So in a game at that way, I didn't really speak a lot, but no, he was always there. He was always there. You know what I mean? He was always around. Nan wise, it'll only be between Shane Millard and Tez. Again, two very different types of players. I thought Shane proved that he was good enough for anywhere once he went to Leeds after us.
Yeah.
But I think Tez, like I said, it was that fear factor with him and the unknown, because sometimes you watch reviews of Tez and when he was doing, and he'd score a try, but he'd make the wrong decision. Because he scored the try, you couldn't question it, and people wouldn't question it.
Yeah.
And I think that's when you know you've got something really special. But like I said, people don't see the Tez that we knew. He'd do absolutely everything for anyone. And I mean everything, any time of day, night, or anything. Unbelievable. And an idol of mine, and probably one of my best mates when I played as well. I got Craig Smith, my other prop. The reason I put Craig in, I think he changed the dynamic of how we trained. He come over with this thing, and I remember Frank Endicott saying that he trained his way into the national team. And he come in, and Andy Farrell had this trait of, after games, flogging himself still. And you're like, what are you doing? I can walk and people can't do it. He's flogging himself. But you turn up and he box, and Dave Ferner had boxed with him. And then it become, we all had to box. And it changed the full dynamics of how Wigan trained. And I think he was the one that brought daily challenges to everyone. And I think he was a massive part of me thinking the way I was. So being younger, trying to get this, now he's showing me that he's next level. And he's had to go to next level to get to that level, if that makes sense. And just a phenomenal athlete. And he's down injured with ligament damage, and he gets up and tries to make a tackle. And it's little things like that that stand out for me of, he's an hard bloke, but he's willing to die for help his mates out. And he knew he was coming to the end of his career. He was having cortisones every week and stuff. But like I said, there was a lot of others in it as well, but unbelievable people as well. One at back row was a bit Dave Ferner for the exact same reasons as Craig. A phenomenal athlete. Another one that trained and trained and trained. And when I mean trained, they weren't doing extras all the time. But when they trained, it was full on. But if you're being invited into these, you know what I mean? It's a pleasure and a privilege. You might get whacked a few times and that way on, but it was, and I think that's what the difference between being a winner and just being very good, as I alluded to before. The other back row, the toss between Mick Cass and Dennis Betts. Again, both legends in there, all right. Played with Mick for longer because Dennis went into coaching, but just the legends that they are of the sport and what they offered the sport. And not only that, they were both massive influences on me. I think Mick was more of a robust hard worker, if you want to say. Dennis had a bit more like old school in him. Yeah. Old school of how he ran and what he did and what he offered, and obviously showed that he had a brain on him as well with going into the coaching. But again, very difficult. And obviously Faz at loose forward, mate, speaks for himself. I think, again, a legend of both codes, and a legend in his own right to what he does. But like I said, I could make an exact same 13 from from my time at Widnes and Swinton, because there'd be a lot of them that if they weren't full internationals, had housed them.